Hello and welcome to another edition of Atlas Information Live. We are glad that you could be with us here today, this afternoon, or this evening, wherever it is you are in the world, or this morning, if you're on the other side of the world. We and if this is your first time joining us, then welcome. We are happy to have you here, and we hope that you will find today's presentation informative, if not altogether entertaining. We do our best at times, but of course, we certainly make no claims to be a source of infotainment, as it were. That said, today we're going to take a bit of a departure, but not too much from the series that we concluded last week. Because ultimately, when one considers the topic of esotericism or metaphysics, the pursuit of the self, pursuit of betterment of the self, invariably one runs up against the word perfection and the notion that ultimately the ultimate goal of the esoteric path or any spiritual undertaking, any metaphysical, esoterical approach is self-perfection, the perfection of the self. That may mean many things to many different people. And today, we are going to explore this presumably all-important, all-encompassing final stage, the final point, as it were, of everything that we're talking about here and everything that, the human condition, the human endeavor, presumably, is to strive towards this finish line, this state of perfect being, whatever that may be. And whether or not that pursuit is a trap, that the very pursuit of perfection is that in and of itself its own temptation, its own danger. Is it, we can turn to literature, we can turn to life, history, we can look at our own lives, we can look at the lives of others who we perhaps know personally, but certainly we can look to the lives of so-called great men and women throughout history who have sought this elusive, ephemeral concept, really. Because what is perfection? how does one define perfection to begin with? The If one considers the antonym or antithesis of perfection, then one invariably runs into the concept of flaws, that which is flawed, obviously that which is imperfect, but it is imperfect because there are obstacles, there are conditions applied which interrupt the perfection, which foil the perfection, which spoil it. The these imperfections, these flaws, these defects, and as these defects persist, the perfection is interrupted, the perfection is disturbed. And if perfection is disturbed, it ceases to be. It ceases to be perfect and it becomes imperfect. That is one of the peculiar aspects of perfection, because generally speaking, all things exist more or less on some sort of gradient, do they not? Things tend to exist on a continuum. Now, if you'll bear with us, we have made it a small investment to try to potentially add greater value and greater um, add to our ability to communicate concepts. And this concept of perfection and things we're talking about, perhaps they lend themselves to some visual aids. But opposed to doing a sort of um, PowerPoint ahead of time and being locked into and having to try to adapt around some preconceived notion of what we need to share and what we need to say and when and how to say it, right? It's that premeditated, preconceived uh, preparation for these live streams, which tends to um, throw a monkey wrench in our ability to improvise and allow the flow to take us wherever it needs to go, wherever we are being taken and wherever we are being directed. That said, occasionally, if we want to share with you things that we've been working on or things that are perhaps um, things that are being communicated in the book or a video that we're working on and so on and so forth, still, even if we do have slides, we would like to be able to make annotations and notes and elaborate and share with you those elaborations in some more meaningful and more fluid sort of way. And to that end, we have we've invested in a small device which we hope will allow us to add to our discussion. Now, you'll have to bear with us because this is new to us, and we still have to work out, get more familiar with the technology, how we're using it. But in any case, a moment ago we were talking about having a continuum, and that's not the, not the straightest line in the world. Again, you're going to have to bear with us, but typically we deal with phenomenon on a continuum. But perfection is not like this. Perfection, we would say, is here. right? Here, this is what it means to be perfect. This is 100%, if you want to look at it in those terms, right? That means all of this, right down from 99 all the way to 0, this is what we call imperfection. This is when we consider this in any meaningful, practical way, this phenomenon, what we're looking at here, this whole thing, is the cause of a great deal of suffering, a great deal of anguish, a great deal of angst for a great many people. Those who are seeking, right, this all elusive 100%. Why? And in what way do individuals seek that 100%? And perhaps perhaps individuals like this. We call them perfectionists, do we not? We can turn to quotes, for example, that famous quote about Alexander the Great, of Alexander of Macedonia, when he stood on the breadth of his domain and he wept, for there were no worlds left to conquer. There's an individual who was seeking a kind of perfection, a totality, a 100%. And when he achieved it, or in his own mind he achieved it, he suffered. It is said that he broke down in tears and suffering. Then there are those who seek perfection. We often invoke that scene from The Last Samurai. Um, Katsugo, who's looking for the perfect cherry blossom, and tells uh, he tells Albrun, Tom Cruise's character. He says, "You can spend your entire life searching for the perfect cherry blossom and never find it." And then near the end of the film, there's that beautiful scene when he achieves enlightenment right before his death, and it comes to him, this realization about the perfection of cherry blossoms and the juxtaposition, the relationship between his death and his comprehension of the perfection which he sought. He was searching his whole life, but he couldn't find it. And somehow, through death, comes this realization, this comprehension about the nature of perfection. But this phenomenon that we face, where anything shy of 100% is imperfect, is precisely what makes perfection so elusive here on this plane of existence. But what if we found another word for perfection? What if instead of calling it perfect, Here we use the word what if we said being, that is to be, was here? That means all of this this is why in esotericism we talk about perfecting the self, because being is a state of perfection. To be, you are, you are, or you are not. And so, but then you might say, but why is there 99%? Why is there this big long continuum of not being, just like there's this big long continuum of perfection? The further away you get from being, the closer you get to totality of not being. Oh, actually, hang on a second. We can undo that. Right? So this is complete non-being. This is when you at last get to see how terrible our penmanship is. So then there are levels and levels and levels of not being. Ironically, this is not a complete picture. This is actually not a complete picture. If we wanted to make it complete, we would draw. Actually, we're gonna try to do this. We're gonna see if we can. Whoops. Let's see if we can do that. This is a Microsoft software, this whiteboard, so it's pretty. Let's see if we can draw this like that. Okay, there we go. So let's hide that. In the middle, we're going to call this perfection. Perfect being. And here we're going to call it total not being. Now, presumably, we should be showing this up and down vertically. This scale, normally we would draw it like this, but because we have a lot to show here, for the sake of the screen that we are working with, we're going to work left to right. But the point that we're making here is that there are levels. There are gradients, right? Between this 0% and this 100%. All of us here are working towards perfecting our being, our higher self, becoming our true self, and knowing ourself. But that's not the finish line. This 100%. there's a whole other universe, whole other realms of being, whole other states and levels of being, just as there are levels of not being. Perfection, the 100%, this perfection is really in the middle of a greater continuum. But we mortals, we can't be thinking about, and imagining, thinking about this. Right? This is not for us. This is for our being. This is obviously the level of being. This concerns our being. And in some ways, you can argue, if you want to argue semantically, that if we have levels of not being, that means this actually is some kind of a process or some kind of gradient toward being. So if you have levels of not being, if being and not being are a dichotomy, a dialectic, if you can have levels of not being, well, then surely you can have levels of being prior to perfect being. And yet, you can and you can't, because clearly there are greater levels of being that can only be known, that can only be achieved once we achieve the perfection of the self, the perfection of the being. This search or quest for perfecting the self you can see that this perfection is in the realm of our being. We're talking about the perfection of the being. To first become the being by eradicating all of the imperfections, all of the defects, which spoil, which condition, which prevent that perfection from being realized. The realization of perfect being, the realization of what perfection is, comes through comprehension, which can only come through experience. We have to know that perfection. We have to know that perfection within and cultivate that. And that perfection is born from the ashes of destruction of that which is imperfect. This perfection comes at a cost. It comes with a sacrifice. It comes with death. For perfection to be born. And for everything on this side of the continuum, everything here on the right, comes at the cost of what's here on the left. And yet, we know from last week's lecture, and which is why this is almost like an epilogue to our series. And we could have just called this lecture Perfection, and coupled it in. But really, what we're sharing with you now is, yes, it's got like an epilogue to last week, but really it's an introduction to this week. Because everything that we see here, we should all know intuitively, and everything, the information that we've shared so far, that if you've been watching us regularly, and you will know all this, or this should not seem all that new to you, because we talk about the three factors of the Alm of life, the three factors of revolution and evolution of the consciousness, which is sacrifice, death, and birth. The sacrifice of all that causes our imperfection, and the death of the imperfect self, in order so that the perfect being can be born. This is the phoenix. Are we going to make an attempt here? Here we go. The phoenix, which is born of the ashes of its own destruction. We're gonna have some ashes here. We got some flames, and we got the phoenix rising. That's our phoenix. And we're supposed to be able to grab this whole thing and move it around, so we can. Okay. We're gonna take a quick pause, and there's some comments here that we have. Okay, we got some. We have some people saying hello. Benjamin said hello. As Azil says, that background is familiar. If you're referring to the angels and demons behind me, or the white background. Stuart says, to control. Yes, to control. That's interesting, because nowadays, we use the word to troll on the internet. We have trolls. Trolls live under the bridge. Trolls demand a payment before they let travelers go across the bridge. And you can think of this continuum here like a bridge. And to control is to be a troll, but not to allow people to achieve what they want, but contrary to that, so in opposition, in direct opposition to. So we like the suggestion, Stuart. Stuart says, what if creation is perfection, yet nothing created is perfect? You may be getting ahead of us. You may be jumping to the end, but then again, you may not. We'll have to wait. You'll have to wait and see. But it's a good question, and it's one that we hope we can explore through the course of what we're sharing today. And Azazel is probably either the kindest or blindest art critic in the world, or the most sarcastic. These are the three options we can come up with. But thank you for that. By the way, if anybody wants to jump in, we should be able to share yes, there it is, and there it is, and there it is. There's the StreamYard link if you wish to jump in. And unfortunately, unless you have your own little drawing tablet, I don't. You won't be able to contribute to our masterful visual aid. But by all means, do come on. And you know what? I guess we'll put a heart here on our on our phoenix. So from this standpoint, perfection, the perfection that we seek to serve, that we seek to realize in ourselves, is the perfection of the being. It is being itself, perfect being, which means to be and to not fall into states of not being. But what does that really mean? Right? What does it really mean not to be? A definition of not being would be worthwhile in order so that we know uh, how not to be. Because to say that which obstructs or conditions or interrupts or disturbs perfection is not being, it's imperfection. We have to stop and share this. Benjamin says, coincidentally, I'm delivering from a place called Pizza Perfection. Well, if you're delivering from a place called Pizza Perfection, I'm gonna want to order one because I have a weakness for pizza. So, is it really perfect pizza? You'll have to let me know, because so far the only perfect pizza I've ever eaten is the one my great grandmother used to make, and she taught me the recipe. So the pursuit of perfect pizza was already achieved in this household decades ago. But you know, we're not saying that pizza perfection is any lesser for it. I mean, there could be truth in advertising. You never know. But we'll actually pick up on this, Benjamin. We'll actually dig deeper into this in just a moment. But first, what is what is imperfection then? What is what and if perfection relates to being and imperfection relates to not being, what is what is it? What is not being? Practically speaking, we should all know this. If we say that that which is being is real, and that which is not being, Stuart asks, could imperfection be merely existing? But if you exist, you are. Existing is being. When you say merely existing, we don't know what you mean by merely existing. You exist or you don't. If you say that, oh, I'm just existing, you say that that's like, you make it sound, you say that sheepishly, you make it sound sheepish, as if that's not much of an accomplishment. In fact, that's the accomplishment. That's the goal. To be, is it not? To exist. To be. Then what is not being? It's in the words. This isn't complicated. We're not trying to trick you. This isn't some elaborate, clever game. As Azel says, to be honest, it was probably sarcasm for the most part, but truly the phoenix came into cuteness with that heart. All right, but who's gonna step forth with a definition, or with a synonym for not being? Stuart says, not being is not being. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. Clearly, if all of us are not yet being, because we are not self-actualized, we're not self-realized, we're not perfect, we have not achieved the perfection of our higher self, right? We're not here. We're not there yet. It means we're somewhere here. It means we all know what not being is. So what is it? The downside of having this whiteboard is it puts us into a much more interactive teaching mode where we're showing or giving you the hints and everything, and it's like, well, come on, like let's get some interactivity. Let's get some So Stewart says, not being is unconscious, being is conscious. Okay, again, we're getting closer. So so what do we say we are doing or experiencing if we are unconscious? As opposed to being conscious. As Azazel says, being not being. I think we're over thinking it. Okay, dead is really unconscious, right? Robotic. Okay, if we say, if we call consciousness, having consciousness, we call that awakening or being awake, enlightenment, awakening the consciousness. If that's consciousness, if awakening and being awake is related to consciousness, what are you if you're not awake? You could be dead, but we do something every single night, and we do something every single day during the day, but we really do it when we go to bed. There it is. Sleep. And Azazel follows that up with mechanicity, because how do we sleep? What happens to us when we sleep? When the mechanical rational mind takes us on our little, we have experiences while we sleep, and we call those what? We call those dreams. We dream. Yeah, you're physically awake. You might be sobering up. That's fair enough. You're physically awake. But everything that we're experiencing, the computer or the smartphone or whatever it is that you're experiencing, none of that is real. As Azazel says, that's what we meant by with being not being. We know that we are mechanical beings. Yeah, sure. But mechanical beings, that mechanicity, that physicality, that materialism, this body that we're in, it feels very real, does it not? It feels like it feels like it exists. It feels like we mortals with our physical bodies and our thoughts, they seem very real to us, when in fact they are what the ancients called Maya, illusion. Nowadays, the clever materialist scientists and the various different philosophers and various different intellectuals have come up with so-called simulation theory. And Stewart says it right here. Illusion. Illusion. That's how we can be in a state of not being. That's how we are there on that side. We are in this state of not being, in these levels of not being. We are inside this box. And this reality, and that reality doesn't exist. What is real starts here and moves this way. And what is illusion is this universe, this mechanicity, this box that we are trapped in. Stewart says humans been drunk on illusions, hypnotized. That's right. Because there is another way we can express all of this. There's another way we can express all of this. Let's move it down this way. And that other way we can express it is that to be, for example, something can be true. And if something is true, you can know that. So everything this way, and that which is true, the truth is, by definition, it's objective. So it is. And everything over here is whoops. It's right? Benjamin says, it reminds me of why the angels fell because of inane passivity of taking care of the Garden of Eden. And he says, it is a dream state, the illusion of the garden. The reality is that, the reality is that, let's just move all of this over here. When we talk about being and we talk about getting to that perfect being, that state of perfect being, there is, there's a point here. There is levels of being and levels of being above that. But then there's this gradient before we get to, the world, Malkuth. And then below that, there's the levels of hell. So in here, we have nirvana or heaven. And this is we call this like the world. This is 3D. And right above the world, we have Eden, which is 4D, which is also called the foundation, because it's the foundation of the three-dimensional world. We're not going to worry about drawing the whole tree of life and everything else. Hopefully, you'll know enough about that. But illusion, right above Eden, we have the astral plane. Well, the astral plane. Bear with me while we. Okay, we call that 5D. But of course, as above, so below, and this is Klipoth. We also call this hell. We also call this the lower or lunar astral plane. And the astral plane consists of the mental body, the emotional body, and Eden, the fourth dimension, is our vital body. In combination with our physical body, which is the 3D, these are what are called the four bodies of sin. Okay, so you have the mental, emotional, vital, and physical bodies. These are the four bodies of sin. Why? Because these are the bodies that can be another word for defected is infected by egos. And that they are what cause us to fall from Eden, to fall from the solar astral plane into the lunar astral plane. Boredom is a quality of ego. To the three factors of the evolution and revolution of the consciousness of the alm of life are sacrifice, death, and birth. If we give in to the desire to satiate our desire for excitement or whatever the case may be, then naturally we can be tempted, and egos will tempt us. Because the journey up is, according to the alm of life, it's a spiral, and it's a long and difficult journey. Even if you take the so-called direct path, which is, if you take the so-called direct path, you still have to do the alm of life. There's no getting around the spiral. It's just the spiral is accelerated, and you complete the spiral of perfection of the self in one lifetime, as opposed to taking many, many, many hundreds, if not thousands of lifetimes to do it. Because once you reach nirvana, nirvana is only halfway. So once you reach nirvana, though, you are a Buddha, you are awake, and then you can reincarnate and continue your process on what is called the spiral path. That's what they call it. Those are what are Pratyeka Buddhas, and they're called Nirvanis. That's what they do. They walk the spiral path. Okay. We have a couple quick comments. Stuart says, snake oil salesmen sell illusion. Yes. But there are many, many, many snake oil salesmen around these days, from entertainment companies to pharmaceutical companies to self-help authors and to new age gurus. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And there is a hidden truth related to perfection in all of it. Is, as it says, lust imitates Eden perfectly. Lust promises Eden. In fact, lust promises heaven. And the orgasm is called the little death because it is such a hypnotic and powerful form of physical, visceral ecstasy that it mimics a religious experience. And as Isaac says, which is why it is a hell of a job to eliminate lust. Lust is also entangled in love. It's so difficult to eliminate lust because lust is like, if you've ever seen this, we're not going to try to draw this, but if you've ever seen a vine that climbs up a tree and then chokes it out, you've seen that before. These invasive vines will use a tree as their own scaffolding, and they will wrap themselves around the trunk and all the branches, and then their leaves end up blocking out the light for the tree. And just like any parasite, they actually end up killing their host. But trees, of course, don't exactly fall over when they die. They just wither and die, but they keep standing there. And this vine will then saturate this tree and every last branch. And that's lust, as it wraps itself and weaves itself around and integrates with the concepts of love. That's why, I mean, it's a very good strategy. It's a very good survival it's a very good strategy for survival, and it also makes it very, very, very hard to get rid of, because you go to prune this vine off your tree, or go to cut you're liable to, or it makes you feel afraid to do so, because it makes you feel like you're actually cutting limbs off of the tree of love in order to get rid of the vine of lust. That's what lust will tell you. You can't get rid of lust. How can you be in love with someone without giving them the orgasm? How can you really love someone if you don't share that? And there's all sorts of rationale and excuses. I mean, you've heard them, and people will make them. Remember, lust is the mother of all desire. And desires have a way of talking themselves into our life and into our consciousness, but specifically our subconsciousness, and then into our consciousness. But they're rooted deep down, and they're very hard to get rid of, precisely because they're born of lust. Lust and fear, and we've talked about that before. Stuart says trees need to move. Yeah, if trees need to breathe, trees need the light. Everything that you're describing applies to love. Love needs to be free. And lust wants to choke it out, wants to dominate, and wants to piggyback and then siphon all energy related to it and invert Eden and cause us to fall from Eden into hell. And that's what happened to this humanity. That's why we are where we are. And how if Benjamin is here, Benjamin can tell us how the serpent in the garden, how lust was able to convince Adam and Eve, or convince Eve to eat the apple and to give it to Adam. There was a very specific argument that the serpent makes in the allegory of Genesis. Stuart says, yes, hallelujah. Movement and breath defy the poison ivy of strangulation. But remember, there are many egos, and these egos are very clever. So if you know someone who suffers from chronic busyness, they always have to be doing something, they always have to be on the move. Sometimes love, consciousness, being just wants to be. And sometimes we require stillness. There's a time for everything under heaven. There's a time to move, and there's a time to be still. There's a time to leap into action suddenly and immediately without any real thought. Just pure intuition, pure action in the face of some danger or some situation. And then there are other times that require for long, careful, considered meditation and contemplation on what action we should take. So yes, movement is required, but there's also stillness. And Stuart says, vibration is never still, even in stillness, isn't it? The ultimate truth of that is that there is a stillness which is beyond even vibration, and its nature is unknowable. So, and that is a level of perfection, that is a level of being that is beyond the scope of our comprehension, which is why you make a comment that there's vibration even in stillness. Yes, in this universe, in our reality, from our point of view, yes, but in actual reality, no. But that reality is unknowable to us, precisely because it is beyond the matrix of the reality that we know, which is all frequency and vibration. So it's always tempting, right? It's always tempting. We always want to leap all the way to the top of the mountain. We have to recognize we're at the bottom of the mountain. So we have to be practical. So when we say movement is important, but stillness is important, that's because it's so easy for the ego mind to say, oh, we got to keep moving all the time. And oh, even when we're still moving, which kind of gives all of a sudden gives the ego mind carte blanche to keep being agitated and fidgeting while we're trying to meditate, which is counterproductive. You need to be still, you need to be calm, you need to be relaxed, you need to be, you need to stop doing and stop thinking. You need to allow all of that to settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. If you never achieve that stillness, you will never achieve the emptiness and the fullness that we were and the oneness that we were talking about in previous lectures over the last 7, 8 weeks. So we have to be practical at the level that we are at. So how then does perfection become a trap? What Stuart just mentioned here is, we don't want to single you out, Stuart, but it is an example of how the rational mind thinks about perfection. One of the things that we should do our best to understand without getting caught up in is the relationship between the pursuit of perfection by what we call, the White Lodge and the Black Lodge. We'll just use black and red here. Actually, you know what? Here, we're gonna do. Let's do. Okay, so the White Lodge and the Black Lodge, and then here in the middle, let's call this the world, right? And down and up here, we can say that the White Lodge, the brotherhood of beings, they're seeking perfection, right? They're seeking self-perfection. They're seeking being, that perfection, right? That goes this way. But the Black Lodge down here, they seek their own perfection, which goes this way. This is very important for us to understand. And we've touched on it in the past, but just briefly. What we just showed earlier was the three factors of sacrifice, death, and birth. Letting go and eliminating all the mechanicity, all the illusion, all the hypnosis and ignorance, in order to get that which is real to that which is, and that is the being. So it's a stripping away, and it's a enlightenment. It's not just related to light, it's also related to density. So to enlighten yourself, if you visualize yourself like an ox cart filled with boulders, and it's a slow, arduous process up to the top of the mountain. And as you get higher and higher, there's less and less oxygen. So this poor ox, it can't be burdened with all these heavy boulders in that ox cart. So you have to lighten the load, that heaviness, that low vibrational things that we experience as negative emotions, as egos. Anger, fear, lust, greed, envy, laziness. These are the things that make us heavy and dense and low and sluggish, and all these things we experience, and the causes of our suffering, that lower vibrational existence. And they are what keep us trapped in the material plane, right? Physicality itself is part of that weight that we carry, that burden that we are trapped in, that prison of mechanicity and materialism. So, as members of the White Lodge, we're looking to shed all of that. The metamorphosis of a fat, slow, dumpy caterpillar into a beautiful, light, ephemeral butterfly, which can fly, right? It's really that metamorphosis that's taking place inside the cocoon of our lives, inside the cocoon of our monad. The elimination, the sacrifice and death of the caterpillar as it is consumed by the chrysalis, which then gives birth to the butterfly. That's, in biological terms, metamorphosis is alchemy in alchemical terms. But a reverse process is taking place for initiates of the Black Lodge, of the left-hand path. They're seeking a perfection in the other direction. To the members of the Black Lodge, the perfection of immaterialism is an abomination. To them, what is real is what is mechanical. And in the world of physicality, to dominate and to control and to accumulate, to achieve perfect mastery over nature, over physical reality, is a perfection that the Black Lodge seeks. Just as an initiate of the White Lodge seeks to become a master over their mechanical, physical self. Mastery over nature, to be in control of one's nature, is the first step to be able to sacrifice and eliminate one's lower nature and be born again of the waters of the Spirit in one's higher self, in one's higher nature, to become more perfect, to become closer to that perfection of the being. And to the Black Lodge, listen to the language now. To become a lord and master over physical nature, and to be a master and to be in control of one's world, is the path to no longer being a mere mortal trapped in that world and controlled by that world, but to die as that mortal and be born again of the fire and the blood as an awakened master of the Black Lodge. We call them black magicians or we call them demons. And to achieve a state of purity, of perfect mechanicity, of perfect containment, a perfect control and eradication over life, over nature. It's the same goal as the White Lodge, just inverted. Because a master, an initiate of the White Lodge seeks to control their nature and their world in microcosm. So we seek to be in control of our heart, our mind, our body. We seek to be in control of our lust, of our fear, of our anger, of all of our egos, to control them and then eliminate them, eradicate them from us. An initiate of the left-hand path, they're also seek to control their egos, to be in control of their emotions and their egos, but to harness them and use them and cultivate them. They also seek to control consciousness and sexual energy, the creative force. To know. So the initiates in the left-hand path, the Black Lodge also talks about awakening. They also talk about hypnosis and ignorance. But they're awakening negatively. And they want to awaken and they want to become perfect from what is, from their point of view, perfect being. They're seeking to perfect themselves, just as we are. It's just how they're looking to perfect themselves and how they define perfection, which is the inverse of that of the White Lodge. And we can see this in our world in the fact that there is this obsession with the materialists to achieve perfection on the material plane. There's different forms of perfection that takes, but they're all quantifiable in some way. So accumulation, for example. Now, we talked about hoarding and we've talked about different things, but the accumulation of wealth, the accumulation of power, of followers, fame, the difficulty with that is that there's no upper limit, so that you can never be truly fulfilled, and you can never have everything, or can you? Maybe you can, but you would have to be the king of the world. And then what? Then you'd start looking out at the planets and say, now I have to conquer the planets. I've conquered the world, now I have to conquer planets. Otherwise, you're going to break down and cry like Alexander the Great. So there's this never-ending quest for that. Then there is the whole question of perfection. Can you even perfect things on the physical plane? Well, they try to perfect in jewelry. We've talked about expensive watches. The watch is the talisman of perfection of the Black Lodge, the expensive watch, because time is an illusion. And a timepiece, to make a perfect precision timepiece and wear that on your left hand, it's a reminder of the dogma, the doctrine of perfection that the adversaries, the followers of the adversarial path, pursue. The jeweled movement and the precise handcrafted precision gearing and timing and engineering and chronograph and all this other, and the precision movement and everything else. I mean, the world of the world of precision watchmaking and watch collecting it's a whole world unto itself. And the Swiss watchmakers are, they known the world over for their, obsessive watchmaking, and of course that feeds the obsession of those who seek perfect timepieces that keep perfect time. The irony is that time doesn't exist. So what were the words that we were using earlier? Illusion, hypnosis, ignorance. Perfect illusion. The capacity to exist in a perfect illusion. And the desire to bring about that perfect illusion, that it's it is the folly which has led and leads to every dystopian nightmare on this planet, as ego believes that it can create a system that can achieve a state of perfection in the world, a perfect society. That was Karl Marx. That was communism. And look how well that turned out. Look how it's unfolding now. The obsession with perfection and achieving perfection here in the material world and through the material plane by perfecting it itself is the trap. That is the trap. Because the closer you get to achieving that perfection, the more in illusion you are. And the further you are from actually being. So you have perfect illusion versus being perfect, or perfect being. This is, ironically, this is right? They also call this being perfect. Whereas the goal is to perfect the being. And here, what they're perfecting is illusion. But to them, that illusion is what's real. That is the hypnosis and ignorance that they exist in. Because and this comes back now to mechanicity, because there is a precision to mechanicity, a mathematical, geometric, the engineering and so on and so forth. There's a purity to it. We've talked about this as well. Because going all the way back to the beginning, where are we now? Yeah, here we go. Whoops. Let's undo where we moved that from. Where do we start? We started here. And we talked about perfection and different words for perfection. Well, another way we can describe perfection is we can say purity. What is pure? And we can say what is impure. But to someone in the Black Lodge, freedom, liberty is messy. What is pure and conscience is disruptive. It's chaotic from the standpoint of the Black Lodge. The perfection that they seek is order. We've talked about that in the past as well, like in Star Wars. Yeah, Stuart here says love is messy. Love is messy because it's severity and mercy and balanced, applied unconditionally with infinite wisdom. Love is not orderly. Love is not precise. There's no precision to it. It is perfect in its constant balancing. Yeah, it's beautiful in its messiness. The same thing can be said about nature. This is that going back to The Last Samurai, when uh, the, Katsugi, I always forget his name. But anyway, he looks up at the moment of his death and he realizes that they're all perfect. That the perfection in the cherry blossom is not found in the thing itself. The perfection is found through the thing. This is the difference. This is the difference. The Black Lodge seeks perfection in the thing itself. But many artists, musicians, composers, authors, speakers, they have used art, for example. They've created artifacts. And many craftspeople have made beautiful things. And architects and builders have created phenomenal objects, including the Great Pyramids of Giza, for heaven's sake. And the proportions, and I mean, like, there's a perfection at work there. But the perfection on the material plane serves the perfection of the being. Whereas if one becomes identified with the perfection of the thing itself, then that serves the perfect illusion, the perfect hypnosis, the perfect ignorance. Because the thing in itself doesn't actually exist. It's perfect illusion. But that's what identification and attachment lead to. So, what is it then that we're really talking about here? And how perfection becomes a trap for us, for anybody? It's when perfection is applied to that which is not being, to that which isn't, to that which is does not be, is not being. And we can experience here and now not being, and we can awaken to that and become aware of that. Perfection of the self is perfect awareness, perfect presence, perfect being. As Azil said it earlier, when he said, being, not being. Being, not being. In this messy concoction here, there's the realization or the achievement of perfecting the being and being a perfect being. But is this really the one we want to use, or that one's messy and that one's messy? Let's go this one. This one's cleaner. So, and plus it's got everything we already drew on it. So this is perfect being up here, and this is perfect illusion down here. And so we have this gradient all this way, and then here's the real world. This is hell, and then this is, on our way to achieving perfect being. But we can be somewhere in hell, and we can say that we can be here in not being. Oh, let's make that bigger so you can see that better. Benjamin asks, so a perfect being is different from being perfect? Absolutely. Because nothing can ever be perfect. But it can perfectly be. This comes back to what Stuart was talking about. Love is messy and beautiful in its messiness. This whole spectrum, this whole game. Well, first of all, let's is anybody unclear? Do we need to elaborate on the difference between the quest to be perfect versus perfectly be? To perfectly be, because where we are in our present state, we are imperfect. But we can know that. We can be in that, and there is a way to be. Because as we said, to be is 100%. Wherever we are, even if that is in illusion, but that's where we are, we need to be where we are. And if what we are is in hypnosis and ignorance, we need to know that. We need to see that. We need to experience that. We need to seek it And it's amazing. We went an hour and a half, precisely an hour and a half, into this lecture, and we did not mention we need to seek, right? Self evident experiential knowledge, right? To have gnosis of our ignorance, to have gnosis of our hypnosis, to be imperfect. You cannot begin to be. Being doesn't begin at the top of the mountain. Yes, at the top of the mountain, there is a state of perfect being. But all along the way, there's still being. It's just not perfect being. It's imperfect being. But you can perfectly be imperfect. To be perfectly in your imperfection. To know it, to be present, to be aware, and to know yourself. And to know and to see the imperfections, and to see the imperfections perfectly, to see them clearly. But if what you're trying to do is to be perfect all the time, if you are trying to be perfect, right, you're just a mortal vessel. You're a vase. You're a 3D spacesuit, so that your innermost being can be here now in 3D space. So the perfection of the self. So the self-help people and the people who worry about being physically perfect, or perfect in their job, or perfect in this, or perfect in that, or achieving like perfection on a worldly level. No, the world is messy, and it's perfect in its messiness. It's beautiful in its messiness. This humanity is dying. Death is a part of life, and it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful transition. We all go through it. And so do all humanity. So do all civilizations. So do all beings on this level. All mortal beings go back into the earth from whence they came. These bodies came out of the earth. They're going to be going back to the earth. There is no perfection, because surely that's why diamonds are so valuable to the materialists, because diamonds in the mineral kingdom are the closest thing that you can get to in the mineral kingdom to perfection. They're the hardest substance, and that they're always, the people looking in Antwerp, Belgium, which is the diamond exchange of the world, and they're looking at what the clarity of the diamond, the color of the diamond, and they're looking for flaws. They're looking for imperfections in the diamond. And so the value of a diamond relates to its color, its size, its weight, but also the number of flaws, the number of imperfections in that diamond. And in esotericism, we call the perfection of the being, we call that becoming a diamond soul. That's why we call that. And look, and we talk about the golden bodies, the solar bodies, and transmuting lead into gold. But for us, all of these are allegories, right? All of these are symbols. A diamond soul is not actually creating a perfect diamond inside of us. No, but it's the closest thing we have on the material plane to something that truly qualifies as perfect and practically indestructible and practically immortal on the physical plane. That's why diamonds are so valuable. But to become identified and to become obsessed with finding the perfect diamond or being the perfect whatever here and now is to completely miss the point of the perfection that can actually achieve perfect being and beyond perfect being into levels of perfection of being, which the rational mind cannot even conceive of that. The rational mind doesn't even, how do you even begin to understand levels of perfection? We can't even grasp perfection, and we can't even achieve perfection on this level because that's not the inherent perfection on this level is its imperfection. Mugaboo says, one day in observation, I realized that I was no thing. All that I thought I was an illusion. Okay, so one day you had this realization, this moment of clarity that, hey, I I'm not really here. I mean, I'm here, but this isn't really here. All of this isn't really here. This is an illusion. But I'm here experiencing, but what I'm experiencing is an illusion. Now my experience has leveled up. My knowledge has leveled up. My being has the my capacity for perfect being has increased. Why? Because I'm aware and conscious of how I was not being a moment ago. A moment ago, this is what I thought, who and what I am, and who and what I was. But now I know I am not this body. This is all an illusion. I'm not this illusion. I'm just here experiencing an illusion. This is one of the first and many types of these kinds of realizations that we have along the path. As we become more and more aware of our imperfections and our imperfect way of thinking and our imperfect ways of being, which are actually we're being imperfect, or not being, because all these people who are asleep, they think they are their job, they are their body, they are this, they are that, and even those in the spiritual community, in the new age, they've been brainwashed with a completely different set of beliefs, a completely different way of not being. They believe that they are actually God and that they are going to ascend and that they are going to exist in the supernal worlds much as they do right now, with their personality and all their desires and everything intact, that they are going to the supernal worlds. And how many times you guys are going to get sick of hearing us say this? But how many times have you heard us say how absolutely nonsensical it is to imagine that your character from a role-playing game is going to leap out of the computer and come to life and exist in the real world? That an illusion is suddenly going to become real and is suddenly going to exist in the supernal worlds. An illusion. That's called being delusional, to hold that kind of belief. And that's what? 90, 95, 97, 99% of the New Age believe this. They also believe in the great global awakening that's just around the corner, they say. Well, they've been saying that for what, since the 60s? So what's that now? 60 years they've been saying that. And certainly they've been saying it from the 70s and 80s. Ever since we've heard, that's 40 years ago. 40 years they've been saying that. Now, why is all of this important? Why is this important? You might be asking, what is this? It's precisely because as Azazel says, one could wonder which path that even serves. Oh, it serves the left-hand path, because the more they think that way, the more they think that they're awakening, that they're already awake. You see, these people believe that they're already awake, right? They believe that they're going to ascend into the supernal worlds. They believe that because they trip balls on mushrooms, that they are already gods and that they can traverse the supernal worlds, right? They already believe this, that they're already ascended masters or gods or whatever it is that they believe, and that they're, and because of the so-called power of positive thinking, and they've swept all negativity under the rug. Well, their egos are like, hey, okay, well, you know what? Let's keep a low profile, and let's keep this ignoramus believing that they're awakening, and let them keep doing their black tantra and black magic and manifesting their desires, and because they're awakening negatively. They're awakening as black magicians. They're awakening as awakened demons. They're awakening negatively because they believe that all of their desires are perfectly natural and perfectly spiritual, and they want to have orgasms that last for 30 minutes, and so they're doing black tantra, and they want to manifest abundance, right? Because everything is abundance, and that's all, it's all divinity. So they're manifesting all their desires, and they're manifesting the partners that they want, and the money that they want, and the material things that they want. This is all black magic. Even as they believe that they're going to be walking and ascending to the supernal worlds, they're going to be ascending, all right, but ascending from the point of view of the left-hand path, which is going to be, they're going to be descending. They're going to be descending. But because that going into the lunar astral plane, which is where they go when they take their mushrooms and their DMT and everything else, well, they already think that they're in heaven. They think that 5D is awakening, by the way. They think that the astral plane is heaven. They believe that. They know nothing about the causal plane. They know nothing about the innermost being. They say they have a higher self, but in the next breath they say, and I'm ascending. So it's perfect illusion, Azazel. It's perfect illusion. That's a trap, a perfect trap for those on the spiritual path. Mugaboo says, I too believe in the New Age teaching that I was ascending, merging with my higher self, until you explained it clearly. It is a hard pill to swallow. It is a hard pill to swallow. Now, having said that, the merging with my higher self part is awakening to and serving my higher self. But your personality and your desires and this person who you are, right? Yeah, that's the difference, right? We know from what we explained that we have to be enlightened, we have to lighten our load. We have to push the boulders off the ox cart to become enlightened, right? You can't take it with you. You can't take it with you. The character cannot leave the video game. That's the trap and the bitter pill, the hard pill to swallow, because the new age believes that you can take it with you, that you and your higher being are going to become one and going to become, merge into this beautiful, wonderful whatever. And then you're going to go and you're going to be on your happy way, your merry way in the supernal worlds. And the element of truth that they're leaving out is the human soul. Is that the human soul must be created, and the human soul becomes one with the divine being and the divine soul. That's called the causal body, the solar causal body, the human soul. That's part of the monad, because the monad is a tri-unity, and the human soul is what relates to this physical mortal being. But you see, the new age kind of smudges all that up and says, no, 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 we already have a human soul, and we are that human soul, and this body and personality and everything is that soul. Our psychology is that soul, and so that is what's going to go up and ascend. It's a very tempting and seductive illusion, but it's just a twist. It's just omitting just enough information for the lie to feel very real and very correct, because they just we have that meme that we say 90% truth can kill, and we in our meme we talk about getting into a car and how to get onto the highway, and we wrote down 12 steps, and then we just left out one step, one out of 12. And by leaving that one step out, we potentially put people in mortal danger. And all the other steps are correct, and they're all in the right order, but just by leaving one little thing out, do a shoulder check while you're merging on into the highway. Look over your shoulder before you merge onto the highway. If you don't do that, if you don't check your blind spot, it could be fatal. And then in that meme, there's a secret, and that is we also didn't say put on your seatbelt. So in the 12 steps that we listed, there was one clear blank and one invisible blank. So there's really two things we left out. Put on your seatbelt and do a shoulder check. If you go on the highway without checking your blind spot and without wearing a seatbelt, you don't check your blind spot. Now you are in complete and total danger of you're. So this is the kind of teaching, these are the kind of traps that create perfect illusion. It's a perfect illusion because it's so close to reality. It's just a little twist, just a little, adjustment. In the same way that you would have a machine that could reproduce copies of something like a photocopier or like a printing press, and you are printing copies of the Bible or copies of the Quran or copies of any scripture. And while you are typesetting the printing press, you decide, you know what? I'm going to take this one word out. And now every Bible that you print or every Quran that you print, because you've taken that one word out, and depending on which word you take out or which word you change or how you rearrange things, that machine is going to be pumping out copy after copy after copy after copy after copy of this altered, degenerated, twisted, conditioned version. But it's so close to the original. It's only a couple words, just change the order around or change the word around. It's nothing, just a little tiny little change. But that tiny little change can have a tremendous, tremendous impact depending on the specificity of the change. And that's what we were trying to show in our meme on 90% truth can kill. All you got to do is just take out a little bit or put in a tiny little bit of falsehood, just enough to twist the whole thing. Azazel says, I have deleted a couple of people like that on my Facebook and so on, but they even seem to contradict the left-hand path as well, because they don't know that they're on the left-hand path. They don't know anything about left-hand and right-hand path anyway. All they know is so-called spirituality, right? They're being duped. Okay, when you set a trap for someone, you don't advertise, right? Like, hey, this is a trap and this is a trap by the Black Lodge. You don't advertise any of that. No, I mean, no, you set it up as, oh, in spiritual and oh, in New Age and oh, in crystals and Reiki and blah, 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 and all the rest of it, right? It's because that's the nature of a trap. You camouflage it, or you create distraction. You create right. It's not designed for the people to know that they're being ensnared or that they're being. Okay. Again, let's emphasize this. Okay, let's emphasize this again. Right. Let's really, really try to nail this one home. Okay. Uh, let's move it. Okay. Let's see if we can. This is what the Black Lodge is all about. Perfect illusion. Mechanicity, we can talk about mechanicity all that we want. That's their nature. But mechanicity relates to materialism, relates to this world, and relates to order and perfection on that in mechanicity, which is an illusion. It's always an illusion. The reason why it's always a tragedy, why Alexander wept for there are no worlds left to conquer, while Katsurugi, looking for the perfect cherry blossom, was always disappointed until he awoke to the fact that they're all perfect. But the materialist sees that and said, that's ridiculous. They can't all be perfect. There must be one that's more perfect than the rest. So we're talking about the dominance hierarchies of nature and all of these things coming into play. So when we talk about traps and New Age being a trap, to say it's a perfect trap means it's the perfect illusion. And how many times have you heard us say that the perfect prison, the most perfectly devised prison, is one that has no bars, no walls, no gates, no doors, no barbed wire fence, no guards, no guard towers. And as a matter of fact, There's a huge, big, long, wide, perfectly paved, perfectly smooth, downhill sloping road going straight into that prison, and people are clamoring to get in there and stay in there. That, dear friends, is the perfect prison. And how could you devise such a perfect prison, such a perfect trap? With this. With this. That's how. That to make that which isn't to that which is not real, to make that which is not real so meaningful and so enticing and so tempting and so seductive. So to make it like, again, the perfect illusion of Eden. Who was earlier? Benjamin said, or Azazel said. I can't remember who was said it. I could scroll back, but somebody can tell me who it was. Who said that the lust is the perfect substitute for Eden? Yeah, as Stewart says here, it's sick ingenuity. It's genius. It's genius. And as Azazel said, it was Azazel, right? So the perfect prison is the one that makes you believe that you're in Eden. But and that's why these people who are taking mushrooms and having and tripping in the lunar astral plane, but they believe they're in heaven. They believe they're traversing the universe. Why? Because the mushrooms make it feel like your ego goes away, because for momentarily they go into the it's like parting the Red Sea, and all the egos are said to, like, okay, now you guys get the hell away. Like there's something about the elemental, especially if we're talking about ayahuasca. It just clears the space and allows the consciousness to be free. Okay, we're gonna back up here just a little bit. Um, Azazel says, yeah, so perhaps not all people on the left-hand path is capable of lying to 99% in a natural way, perhaps to 80% or so, which may make it appear to contradict their own path. Again, so when you're lost in illusion, you're lost in hypnosis and ignorance, you really don't know how true or untrue you are being, because you're kidding yourself. You believe that what you're saying is truth. Remember, we did our live stream on my truth, and the difference between my truth and the truth. Well, these people are all lost in my truth. So all of them believe that they're 100%, they're living in 100% truth. And so you're right, Azazel. They could be all over they could be all over the map. They could be all over the spectrum of just how ignorant they are, just how asleep they are, believing that they're awake. But and in terms of actual practitioners of the left-hand path who know that that's what they're doing, and they know that materialism is their religion, and that mechanicity and illusion is what they serve, uh, it comes back to what Stuart said about ingenuity and sick ingenuity. Just how ingenious are they, and just how powerful are they? That they can, just how perfect an illusion can they create? And you look at things like COVID, and you look at things like 9/11, and you say, okay, so who orchestrated that? Who devised that? Who came up with that? That they were able to hypnotize an entire planet for 2.5 years to make everybody believe that they were getting this virus and so on and so forth. And so they had to get all these I mean, like, again, sick ingenuity, but it's illusion. Now, the beauty about illusion, the beauty about illusion, if you are in the Black Lodge, is that illusion all comes down to just the psychology of the person that you're trying to hypnotize. Hypnosis exists in the mind of the person being hypnotized. So, these charismatic cult leaders that hypnotize their followers into doing outrageous acts of harming themselves and others, it's just mass hypnosis. It is black magic, but that's what hypnosis is. That's what mass hypnosis is. Anything that takes people deeper and deeper into a state of perfect illusion, and the other word associated with that, perfect delusion, because illusion is the thing that if you fall for it, you become deluded. You become deluded in believing that the illusion is real. That's what delusion is. You have been deluded into believing the illusion. So those two words are related in that way. But what it really comes down to is you've been hypnotized. And to what degree does the hypnosis, or to what degree does the illusion resemble reality? Sometimes it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it doesn't have to be very close at all. Sometimes it's this is actually a complex question, because take, for example, the conspiracy theory related to reptilians and the reptilian race that's secretly the reptilian cabal who secretly rules the world, and and the royal family are secretly reptilians, and you can see it in their eyes, and blah blah blah, and on and on and on. That conspiracy theory about reptilians. Okay. um Anyone who's ever encountered a demon knows what they look like. And even in esotericism, there are prayers and references to entities with a face like a crocodile. In other words, a reptilian looking entity. And that's it. Right? That's all you need. That's all you need. Now, egos, demons, can look very reptilian. And egos, demons, the Black Lodge, do enslave humanity. And the royal families and the royal bloodlines and all these global elites and these materialists, they are all, not all of them, but many of them are awakened demons. Inside, they're reptilian. They're egos. They look like reptiles because they're awakened demons. So that's one facet, one sliver, right? The egos look like reptiles, and egos enslave humanity. So therefore, reptiles enslave humanity. And then the ego mind, which again works for the Black Lodge, it works for mechanical nature, the rational mind, unless it has been conquered by the being, unless it's on the road to being perfected, serving the being, it's serving the Black Lodge. So now this elaborate conspiracy theory explodes, and it's just speculation and theory upon theory upon theory upon theory about this race of reptilians who are either from another planet or another dimension or from the hollow earth, or they can be from anywhere. It doesn't matter, but everybody has different speculations, and now they're all arguing with each other about this elusive uh this elusive race of reptilian beings who can make themselves look human, and then they're secretly enslaving humanity. What percentage of that conspiracy theory is true? It's fundamentally true, because egos can appear very reptilian, and they do enslave humanity, and they are other dimensional beings. So that focus, that's kernel, that foundation is 100% true. And all the ego mind has to do is project it out there onto the world. Project the illusion. That's all it needs to do. It takes the truth that egos enslave humanity and there are other dimensional beings, and they can look very human because lots of those global elite running around ruling the earth are awakened demons, but they look human. They don't look reptilian. Well, the Rothschilds might look reptilian, but you know what I mean. Then when they start to get older, they start to really get decrepit. Look at Bill Gates. Look at the transformation of Bill Gates in his old age. And some of these people, they start to really, and you can sense it, you can feel it, like their energy. It's like, that there's just something. Some of them are better at masking it than others, but that's why a lot of these banking families and so on, they're never in the spotlight. They're always behind the curtain, because they always find charismatic people, or people who are very good at hiding their true nature. They always shove those people into the spotlight, right? Like actors, right? So people who are like charismatic and naturally good at winning people over, and they're likable, or the good speakers or whatever. But the really decrepit ones, the really what we would call evil, the ones that they can't hide it, right? It's like they just radiate, this toxicity. It's like they're always hidden. They're never out in the open. They never expose themselves. So that's another aspect which relates to this whole reptilian conspiracy. Well, they all look like humans, right? Because they don't reveal themselves what they truly are. It's the same thing with black magicians and demons. They're not running around, looking like they look in actuality when you see them in the internal worlds. But the point is that it's all theirs is the art and science of illusion. That's what black magic is, right? It's conjuring the perfect illusions and using those illusions to hypnotize and delude and entrap and ensnare souls, consciousness, and sexual energy, the creative force. Because that's the other thing that we can bring into the picture in related to this discussion of perfection. That's the other aspect that we can bring into the picture, and that is, we have the what we call oh, let's pick a different color here. We have what are called human resources. Right? We have consciousness. We should learn to spell consciousness, and we have the sexual energy. Those are the human resources, they're divine, and of course, mechanicity, it covets that, it wants that, and it wants to take it this way because it needs consciousness to feed the illusion. So it deludes consciousness, right? That's what's it's ensnaring. That's what they want to capture with their trap, right? They want to delude. That's their job, is to delude us, is to capture us, is to get us to go into that perfect prison that they've devised. But in order for them to be able to do that, right? They must be able to project that illusion. To project an illusion requires energy. To create the illusion requires energy. So they have to, and to feed the machine, to run the machine requires energy. That energy is a sexual force, the creative force. And they get that, the only place they can get it, it's from us. Like all parasites. So they want to convert and transform, delude the consciousness, and siphon the sexual energy, and create a hungry ghost, to create another zombie, to create another vampire. Like vampires feed on the masses, sure, but their ultimate goal is to pick and choose victims who they will make into new vampires. And the zombie apocalypse takes that allegory to say zombies just want to eat brains and make more zombies. And they don't care. They'll take anyone. They'll eat anybody's brain and they'll convert anybody and everybody into zombies. So it's the same allegory, just playing out in different levels. But the point is, the Black Lodge, like all parasites, they cannot find an alternative source of that which sustains them. So it's designed this way. It's designed this way. And this is all very messy and everything. So, I mean, I don't know how effective this visual aid stuff has been today with this whiteboarding. I don't know if if it's been valuable. You guys will let me know. Um, Stuart says, so grateful for all the protection received. All the protection from the egos. Um, yeah, we receive a lot of help on our path if we were observant and paid attention, and if we're paying attention to just how close to danger we come constantly, then yeah, it's right to be grateful to our Divine Mother who's always looking out for us. Mind you, she's also the one who's tempting us and testing us. And that's precisely the point that we were about to get to. This is a messy, almost incoherent mess of a drawing. We just we're trying to see how we can. Okay. We still had one quadrant up here we could have drawn something in, but we're not going to do that. Again, I don't know how valuable any of this was, but let's use our own. Azazel says one of our friend had his world turned around by a demon. Turned around in what way? Be specific now. He says, which explained why it took this person a great while to tell us about it, for he became part of her illusion. Okay. So presumably turned around in a negative way then? Is that Stuart says priceless information that allows me to be a solid guardian of divinity. Okay. Let's Yeah, that might be a mess, but you know what's not a mess? A chessboard. Chessboard is balanced. A chessboard is fair. And Azazel said, yes, it was a narcissistic relationship, basically. But here's the thing. This messiness, this, yeah, whatever this is trying to be, there's our friend, the Phoenix, right? Remember, it's all about this. It's all about perfection of the being. So was the narcissistic relationship. So was the woman was probably the most devious that you've ever heard of. It's all part of this. How is that so, or why is that so? Because, well, we're going to keep coming back to it for just if we've taken the time. Visualize, if you can, look through all the mess, and on this continuum of the highlighted continuum between being and not being. You know what? In fact, let's just go to the fourth quadrant, and let's go to the fourth quadrant and let's do this. Okay. Okay. We're going to draw, and we're going to draw one person here, and we're going to draw one person there. And we're gonna tie a flag, and there's going to be forces pulling this guy this way. Whoops. Well, didn't want to do that. So we have forces pulling that way, and we have forces pulling that way. And what do we call this, right? We call this the tug of war. Fair enough? Hopefully, without us having to draw it, but maybe just for, well, I mean, we have it here, right? So let's call this being, and let's call this the forces of not being, right? Illusion and truth. And all the rest of this, all the other stuff that we've talked about, right? Stuart Wilson says that whiteboard spaghetti is the undoing of Gordian's knot. I'm not sure I know the reference there. Is that now you make me curious. This is some Gordian's knot. Gordian's knot. The cutting of the Gordian knot is an ancient Greek legend associated with Alexander the Great in Gordium in Phrygia regarding a complex knot that tied. Okay. So is that basically explains what he wrestled with? The drawing or Gordian's knot? Well, we got a picture here too. Okay. The cutting of the Gordian knot is an ancient Greek legend associated with Alexander the Great. I'll put it here so you guys can read it. In Gordium and I can't pronounce that, Phrygia, regarding a complex knot that tied an ox cart. Reputedly, whoever could untie it would be destined to rule all of Asia. Oh, interesting. In 333 BC, Alexander was challenged to untie the knot. Instead of untangling it laboriously, as expected, he dramatically cut through it with his sword, thus exercising another form of mental genius. It is thus used as a metaphor for a seemingly intractable problem which is solved by exercising an unexpectedly direct, novel, rule bending, decisive, and simple approach that removes the perceived constraints. So look, there's a turn him to any cause of policy. The Gordian knot of it he will unloose, familiar as his garter. Well, there you go. Learn something new every day. Well, thanks, Stuart, for bringing that to our attention. But then by that statement, you like the spaghetti. You think that the stickman drawings in the spaghetti is the undoing of Gordian's knot. So I'm going to take that as a compliment. I'm going to take that as one vote for the whiteboard. Um, Azaza says those people on each side of being and not being. Yeah, exactly. Benjamin says it's called quantum entanglement. It only works if it's not observed. Okay. That brings a different level. That brings a different level to the Gordian knot, brings it into the 21st century. And Azazel says, him being drawn into her world of illusion. That's right. And Stuart says the dude at the being end of the rope has a pair of God's scissors. And he says, and Stuart says he learns very visually. Okay, okay. Uh, this thing we can show it to you. This thing uh, was like on sale on Amazon, and uh, and we were like, we've oftentimes when we've shown PowerPoints, we have wanted and we've tried to draw and we've tried using our mouse, and it's so cumbersome. We want to be able to like write annotations or notes or whatever. Maybe it's been kind of messy, or I don't know how. This is the first time. If you guys find this useful, we can use it more often. If you guys find it distracting or time wasting, time consuming, we can use it less often. You guys will let me know in the comments and the feedback. But Stuart says he learns visually, so he got something out of it. Azazel pointing out that we draw these two people, and he says that basically explains what he wrestled with, right? He says that this exactly shows the tug of war and us on the same lines. But here's the secret, right? Here's the secret thing that this is showing. What this is showing is that the force, if you want to call it that, right? The forces pulling this way are the source of our strength. And we know that strength develops through strength, okay? This develops through what? On the Alm of Life, okay, as we are going around and around and around, and again, this looks like a spiral. It is the spiral path from lifetime to lifetime, but on the direct path, this spiral, this whole thing happens in one lifetime. Okay, so this spiral path happens within the lifetime or between lifetime. It doesn't matter. But this is Jacob's ladder. Okay, this is Jacob's ladder. This is Dante's ladder. We've talked about it. You guys know this. The only way to get to the next higher rung on this ladder, right? Each of these become a rung on Jacob's ladder. But there's only one way to get to the next higher rung. To get to the next higher rung, we have to descend to the corresponding lower rung first. You got to lift the weight before you build the muscle that develops the strength. Stuart, right? Okay? He just nails it. And what does this part of adversity come from, or what does it sound like? It sounds a lot like adversary. Adversary is the meaning in Hebrew and Arabic of, we don't have to do that. We can do this. Hang on a second. We're looking for room to write stuff. We forgot we can move this around. It's better than a real whiteboard in that sense because you can move it around. You can erase things easily. So in in Hebrew and Arabic, adversary is, pardon me, why? Shaitan, right? Our own individual adversary. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Adversity and overcoming adversity is precisely the strength that gives us to overcome the adversity. And then each time we descend, we eliminate what was causing the adversity. We overcome the resistance. We conquer those lower elements of our nature. We eliminate, we toss the boulders off the ox cart so that we can rise higher. Shaitan, that's an A. That's an A. That's called the ridiculous and horrendous penmanship. That's an A. Shaitan. 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 Yeah. Stuart says the phonetics of that are hilarious to his ear, but that's shaitan. Now, people have argued with us that this is not the origin of Satan, but it is the origin of Satan. As far as we're concerned, this is where we get this is Satan. Our individual shaitan, our individual Satan. People have tried to argue us against that, but there it is. This is the reason why sin exists, why temptation exists, why suffering exists, and adversity and obstacles and everything we face, and it's all an illusion to try to get us lost, to try to get us to not be, to be trapped in the illusion, to be trapped in that prison. We're going to take just a quick moment here to scroll up and share. Benjamin wrote us a long comment here, so let's go through there. Um, Thank you for your presentation on the distinction between between being perfect and a perfect being. I find myself struggling with the fact that I know the cult or religion I joined because of my wife is nothing more than an illusion. However, it is difficult to convince my relatives of this fact. The founder of this religion claims to be the third angel in the apocalypse and even assumes the prophecy of Christ to be him. It's disheartening to see that there are approximately 2 million followers. I don't know what happened. Or are you did your message get cut off, Benjamin? It seems like there's a dot dot dot. Did you leave the dot dot dot? No, I somehow doubt that. This is all that we got in your comment. So I don't know if this is a StreamYard's problem that it cut your comment short or something else is going on. But Benjamin says, so I think he's got cut and paste the end of it. It's disheartening to see that there are approximately 2 million followers of this religion who have been blinded by the illusion perpetuated by its ministers. Yeah, he says for some reason the long comment cannot be displayed. To be able to be present and perfectly see the illusion is important, and that's how you know that, unfortunately, as you point out, these other individuals are lost in the illusion itself, and they're not being, they're deluded, right? They're deluded. They bought into the illusion, whereas you can be in it but not of it, which is another thing to consider when we consider all of this spaghetti code that we exist in, right? That we can be imperfect and be in a state of imperfect being, but perfectly be in that state, be perfectly aware of the state that we are in. We have often shared with you the fact that, what we are afflicted by, what we suffer from in terms of epilepsy and the demonic possession that's responsible for that, and that the reason why we have suffered this crazy spaghetti and this tug of war and this internal adversary, and we literally have an adversary that we're playing tug of war with like this all the time. And but number one, that adversary helped us to be where we are today, which is sharing all of this with you. Number one. Number two, that adversary gave us the experience of suffering to know what all of you are going through in one form or another. Everyone is going through this. Everyone is going through this, in one form or another. And because everyone is going through this, we needed to go through it. Because how else could we know what you're going through if we hadn't gone through it ourselves? And gone through and live with something, that it's not a race, it's not a competition, it's not about, it's not about but maybe we went through something worse than what you're going through. And if we can get through it, and if we can perfectly be in that state of imperfection that we are in, And we can have access to what we have access to and know what we know because it's been given to us to know and serve our innermost and follow our passion and purpose and mission in life and be okay in that state of imperfection, because that's just where we are right now. We're in hell. This world is in hell, and all of us are together in hell in this world. But it's okay. We can be in hell. We're not going to be perfect. We can be in this world of horrendous imperfection, of outrageous illusion and delusion in the midst of the zombie apocalypse. But as Stuart said, we can be cloaked in the gnosis, in the self-evident experiential knowledge of the illusion. We can be aware of the illusion and be shielded from it. And we must become aware of the sources of that illusion and delusion inside of us as well. Like we are, or like I am, just to be clear. I can watch the demon doing his thing. I'm like, there he is. And I can be okay with that. I can be the imperfect and terrible Gnostic. How many times have you heard us say that? I'm a terrible Gnostic. Terrible, horrendous. If there was a checklist or some kind of like report card, that like I would get X's and F's and D's and C's going down that card. But we have to be who we have to be. And we have to trust and have faith in our being. Because the quiet confidence of being emanates from us. The strength of truth. This week, you may have saw us post on the internet about power and Azazel, power versus strength, and abandoning power for strength. Because it is strength that wins this tug of war, not power. Power is an illusion. Power is here. The masters of illusion seek power over us. That is what they use, right? The power of lies, of deception. That's what they're pulling from that other angle, from that they're pulling to the left. And strength comes with the truth with gnosis. And with that comes confidence, because comes trust, and trust is faith. And trust is earned. Trust is learned, earned, known. Trust is not believed. Belief is over here. Beliefs have power. Religions have power. Cults have power. Beliefs hold sway over us and others. And with beliefs, we can hypnotize the masses and be tremendously powerful. But power is an illusion. Power is fleeting. It is it is temporary, it is transient, but strength, let's go back to talking about a diamond for a moment. The diamond, the most perfect thing as an allegory, as a symbol, is the strongest substance known to man, is a diamond. A diamond isn't powerful. A diamond is strong. A diamond endures. And the more perfect the diamond, the more perfectly it captures and radiates the light. We were speaking earlier about the subjective attributes in which they judge diamonds. Ugh. There we go. We said color, clarity, but what we didn't say was the brilliance. How many times have you encountered a phenomenon and or you've heard some kind of revelation or truth or information, whatever, and you say, that's, our solution, right? I'm going to be coming back to that Gordian's knot, right? Brilliant. Brilliant. Eureka. Like transcendent. Brilliant. It's like a reflection of something, it's the perfect solution, or it's the perfect this, it's brilliant. Genius, all of these, words, but not in the sense of cleverness, but in genuine brilliance. Something which radiates the light, the pure, unfiltered, unconditioned light. This is one of the subjective attributes on which they grade diamonds. And this is another reason why the diamond soul is the symbol used in esotericism to describe one who has self-realized and perfected their being. Because a perfect being reflects the brilliance of God. And when we can bring brilliance into hell, into the illusion, the brilliance has the power, has the potential to dissolve, to dispel the illusion. Because the strength of a diamond and its brilliance and its endurance, like patience, like Job, and the patience required to form a diamond under tremendous pressure and tremendous heat, under terrible, terrible adversity, is how a diamond gains its strength as the coal is transmuted into a diamond under tremendous pressure, under great adversity. That's the same allegory as alchemy, as lead becomes transmuted into gold. coal with the patience of Job becomes a diamond. And the black coal transforms into the strongest substance known to man that can reflect the brilliance of God. Which is why it is the symbol used in engagement rings when a man and woman come together and pledge themselves to one another for the remainder of their lives. We call it an engagement ring, and we use a diamond to mark that occasion on a gold loop, on a gold ring, a diamond ring. Because diamonds are forever, right? And the whole, you know the marketing campaign. But it's all connected. It's all connected to the perfection of the being. And we are using diamonds here as a symbol. But as you know, there's a marketplace and a world industry for diamonds, and there's actually a horrendous, terrible practice known as blood diamonds and everything else, because this humanity is obsessed with the physical diamond and looking for perfection in the physical diamond, when every diamond, no matter how flawed, is a symbol for us here on this live stream right now to remind us of the perfection that we can express in each and every moment by perfectly being who and what and where and when and why and how we are now. We can be brilliant. We can be brilliant, warts and all. We can still be brilliant. We can be. And therein lies the true crux of the matter, and the true of all of this messiness. Because if we are still a lump of coal, it's only through this adversity, it's only through resistance training, it's only through the heat and the pressure that we will develop the strength and the endurance, and we will have an opportunity to radiate that brilliance. And if we recognize that and practice the Om of life and take all of this to heart, then we will be brilliant, and we will be a reflection, an expression, a living, breathing testimony. We will be a witness to the brilliance of God, because we will be an embodiment of the Om of life. We will be an embodiment of the process of becoming a diamond soul. Even though we still may be a lump of coal, we are a diamond in formation. Gosh, where have you seen that before? We are all of us, when we are perfectly being, wherever we are, however we are, and perfectly accepting whatever it is that confronts us, and whatever beliefs and deceptions and illusions and adversaries, whatever is happening on the chessboard is how the opponent, our adversary, is moving the pieces. And we have to accept that. We can't say to our adversary, no, I'm sorry, I don't like that opening. I want you to take that move back and make a different move. You can't say that in chess. And you don't want to. You don't want to tell your adversary on the other end of the rope, no, I don't want you to pull so hard. Because it's like, okay, is the flag moving too far? Are you getting pulled into the abyss? Well, then you got to pull harder. You got to get stronger. You got to dig deeper and find that strength within yourself because you have it within you. We all have it within us. To be a perfect being in formation. In formation. Just like I am still a lump of coal. I'm not here walking on water. I'm not raising the dead. I suffer. I'm lazy. I make mistakes all the time. But guess what? Here and now, in this moment, in this place, is who I need to be and how I need to be for your sake, for everyone's sake, for the sake of all. We are perfectly being. We are perfectly being here and now in formation. As imperfect as we are, and as imperfect as we will always be, because I will never be perfect. Stuart says, my whole family have fallen for this sick illusion, and now I am walking away from them as they are deaf, dumb, and blind to Christ. He says some more, so let's get um, shuddering realizations recently, yet thankful for the strengthening this has given. No competition, bro. I think I have a worse report card. Smile in thanks for the experience rather than cry at the sorrow. And finally, he says, magnificent brilliance bazookas blasting God's love straight through hell has a beautiful ring to it. Benjamin says, I really appreciate your advice for sharing your experience with us. Your perspective has helped me feel more calm and comfortable about what's going on in my life. It's comforting to know that just by having faith in ourselves and being true to who we are, and by seeking and embracing the truth, we can feel more secure and protected from the negative influences around us. If we may, um, we would like to use Benjamin's response here to uh, respond to Stuart's statement about his family. Stuart, the answer to this particular comment about your family and walking away from those who are deaf, dumb, and blind to the Christ, uh, listen to listen to what Benjamin is saying about the circumstances that he is in, and learning to make peace with that, to find calm and make peace with the circumstances of hell, of your particular corner of hell that has been assigned to you, or rather, you have been assigned to it. And you haven't been assigned there because your job is to convert everybody. In the same way that my family are who they are what they are. And And Benjamin says, Stuart says Benjamin's comment brought peace to him. Well, that's good. That's good. And you see, this is why we share the link also, um, to participate, because you know we we don't have all the answers, and one of the things that we try to impart on you is the 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 capacity to start developing the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and we can receive guidance and knowledge and wisdom from anywhere. And in this case, Benjamin received something from us, and he gave something back, which is now of value to somebody else. He paid it forward without necessarily even knowing that he was paying it forward. Is it a more accurate way to say you need some space to level out? The space that you need is not necessarily outside of you or around you. As long as you have some quiet time that you can get to yourself in the evenings before you go to sleep, or in the mornings before you get up, the space you need is inside of yourself. The space you need to cultivate, the stillness and the quiet, because you have something to learn from your family. If for you, they represent the person on the left-hand side pulling on this rope, then comprehend. Comprehend, if you run away, if you let go of the rope, you, are you going to get stronger by avoiding the adversity, the tug of war that was set up for you, that your divine mother devised, the family that you were born into, to help you become stronger. Not stronger in the sense of fighting with them, or stronger in the sense of convincing them, cajoling them, converting them. No, stronger in the sense of calm, peaceful, accepting, allowing. Strength is not power. Convincing, cajoling, converting them, that's power. That's you trying to exert power over your adversary. Here, we're not trying to exert power. Here, we are becoming stronger. We are digging deep inside of ourselves, looking for strength. Like Job, like patience, for example. The patience of Job. How to deal with suffering, with patience, with calm, with accepting, with allowing. And when we are overwhelmed and facing something, we're facing an adversary, and that rope is pulling us, and we think we're going to fall flat on our face, or we're going to fall into the mud, or into the river, or into the pit, or whatever's in between happening on this tug of war. Then what do? We call to our innermost being and our divine mother. We ask for the strength. We ask for the guidance. We ask for what we need in order to prevail over the adversity, over our adversary, to overcome the resistance. But rest assured, both myself and another individual that we were on the phone with for several hours yesterday, they're on the other side of the world. We were just comparing notes on the families that we grew up in. And they have a very similar experience, but in a kind of an opposite sort of configuration, but very, very, very similar nonetheless. And we were just describing and discussing how the difficulties that we shared in our families, and how they made us who we are, and how we wouldn't be who we are if we were born into a nice, comfortable, family where everybody got along and everybody believed the same thing and there was no struggle, no adversity. In fact, we've often expressed here that um, our family was a microcosm of the world and was going to and was showing us, was teaching us, was preparing us for the resistance, for the adversity, for the adversaries, for the masters of illusion out there who are going to be who we are going to have to confront in fairly short order, especially with this book coming out and us stepping out onto the world stage in a more meaningful way, because it's time for us to, to step out on the world stage and start spreading our message to a wider audience. um, and perhaps that's also why we we invested in this spaghetti board. I think we'll just call it the spaghetti board. I like the reference, and and I think it's apropos to what it eventually looks like. Stuart says Benjamin's. Oh, sorry. Stuart says true regarding space being inside. Not so much a case of running away, just letting the rope lengthen. Um, physical distance for practical and energetic matters. No, no, fair enough. Fair enough. But remember that again, your if you need to get away, well, I mean, everybody needs to get away a little bit. Like we ourselves, you know, once we got to a certain age, first we moved to Japan, and then when we came home, we moved to Toronto, and we lived away from home for quite a while. But life kept throwing us back into the lion's den, and it wasn't, and it didn't matter how desperately we tried to get away. Life kept throwing us back in, and it wasn't until we finally made peace with the fact that the resistance that we were getting from our family was our own fault, that we were the cause of it. And this is perhaps not, it's perhaps too deep to get into now, but in a way, this tug of war that we're showing here, this adversity, this resistance out there, anything that it's actually, if we really meditate and observe, the resistance is inside of us. It's not outside of us. Because it's our reaction to the people outside of us that is the resistance, that is the not being. The people outside of us, right? They're just there to trigger the sources, to trigger the adversary inside of us. So you do what you need to do. You do what you need to do. Just remember that your family is there to teach you something, and something it's there to teach you something about yourself. It's something that you probably don't want to see. But I know in my case, everything that I blamed my father for, I was guilty of. Everything. And everything I blame my brother for, I was guilty of. And it wasn't until I let go of my need and my expectation for my family to be anything other than what they and who they are and how they are. It was only once I let go and abandoned all of my needs and expectations with regards to how others are and just allowed them to be, that I recognize the perfection in it. And I was able to perfectly be from that moment forward with my family at all times without any friction. because I recognized that the real adversary, the real resistance, the real friction was inside of me, that I was the cause of it. Took many, 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 many years to get there. I freely admit, I readily admit. And it took many times me getting away and life forcing me back, because it said, oh, there's something you need to learn. There's something you need to learn. And this is the only place you're going to learn it. Mugaboo 22 says, the saying, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Does it mean humans hunger for truth, but are led astray by false teachers? Uh, that's related, but it's what it really means is the truth is out there, but there are few who are able to see it. And the reason why there are so few able to see it, because there are so few who are laboring, who are doing the work that needs to be done in order to develop the eyes to see and the ears to hear. So when you say, does it mean humans hunger for truth but are being led astray by false teachers? Yes, that is also true. But in truth, the false teachers are just a temptation. They're just a trigger. It's the people who follow them that's the problem. The problem lies within themselves. Yes, a trap can be set for you, but if you fall into it and don't realize that you're in a trap and stay in the trap, and are shown a way out of the trap, or are shown that you're in a trap, and then you shake your fist and say, no, 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 I believe the cult leader. Like, there are people who are hypnotized by cult leaders and all this kind of stuff. So it's an aspect of it. But the real problem is that people don't do the work. They don't do the work on themselves. Everybody wants a magic pill. Everybody wants a silver bullet. Everybody wants somebody else to do the work, to come and tell them, ABC, XYZ, and okay, now, I know what to do and how to do it. And so, or, they want some, again, magic pill or a silver bullet. They want something that's quick and easy, and something that they can believe readily and heartily, and something that makes them feel good about themselves, et cetera, et cetera. That's why the New Age is such an insidious trap, as all cults are. But the New Age is so insidious and so perfectly designed as an illusion, because it's designed to capture light workers and starseeds and people who have reincarnated here and come from other planets, from enlightened humanities. They're not supposed to be caught up in delusion. They're supposed to be here and awake and teaching and helping others awaken, because they have that potential. But they fall into that trap, and now they're asleep. And that trap is perfectly designed to delude them into believing that they're here doing their work. They're star seeds or indigos. The false teachers even use these terms. Of course they did, because again, the most perfect illusion is the one that is closest to reality. It's just a little bit different, and we've explained that. So the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. There are too few people swallowing the hard pill, the hard truth, doing the hard work, the patience, the humility, and everything that's required in the tug of war. to actually overcome the adversary. Stuart says, "All my family people please each other and do not speak up in regards to shadows and emotional traumas." He says, "I have no need to run from anyone. I did need to calm somewhat, else strength would be, sorry, I did need to calm somewhat, else strength would flatten them in the form I have been in, I think." And then he says, "I am blessed to have them. And oh, I see the smoke and mirrors of the echo chamber at long last. It's really refreshing to hear your thoughts and reflections, bro." All right. This, look, this spaghetti board is uh, a perfect example of of how self-evident experiential knowledge unfolds in our life. Just think about the things that you know now that you didn't know when you were younger, and that you all of the wisdom, right? And that imagine you trying to explain it to a young person like your children, right? Who are as naive and inexperienced and dumb as we were when when we were their age. And the older generations were trying to impart their wisdom on us, right? And we wouldn't have any of it, right? We'd listen to the long stories and, oh my God, he's telling the story again. And right, we're rolling our eyes and we wanted to go out and play or play video games or watch TV or go, be with our friends or whatever. Look at this mess, right? Like like somebody Stuart called it the spaghetti board. I mean, like the spaghetti drawing. Look at it. It's a mess. Anybody looking at this, they wouldn't be able to make heads or tails out of it, right? It's not intellectual. It's not making an argument. It's a mess. But it is what it is, and however messy it is, it's it's beautiful, and it unfolded step by step by step by step in a kind of natural flow as it needed to unfold. It unfolded, it unfurled, and it became what it is. And what it is a perfect mess. Yeah, who doesn't love spaghetti? Well done, chef. A chef is only as good as the patrons in his restaurant whom he's cooking for, because it's the only reason to be a chef. I know I cook, and I like cooking for people. And if you compare what I cook for others versus what I cook for myself, you you would you would know that they're on two completely different levels of um I'll stand up in the kitchen and I'll like I'll I'll eat leftovers after out of a piece of Tupperware, as I'm sure we've all done and we all do. I think all of us who are more concerned for others and their benefit, and serving others. I think we all do that, except for Azazel, who, of course, Azazel is one of these Northern Europeaners, uh, uh, from Sweden, or wherever you're from, and They love having things done for them, except for when it comes to building furniture. For some reason, they love building their own furniture, but they don't like cooking for themselves. So I don't know. It takes all kinds, right? So we're past the 3 hour mark. So why don't we open it up to if anyone has any questions or comments um, before we uh, say goodbye. I don't know. Again, let us know what you think about the spaghetti board. Was it beneficial? Was it not beneficial? Or we'll just play it by ear. We may use it more often. We may use it less often. We'll see how it goes. It really depends on the topic. It really depends on whether it was called for or not. Maybe it was called for today. Maybe it wasn't. But we had it. We bought it. We wanted to try it out. We wanted to see what you guys thought, and we've certainly done what 2.5 years of live streams without it, so we can certainly get by without it. But a picture is worth 1,000 words, and sometimes visualization is important on the path, and that sometimes as things unfold and we begin to see them, and sometimes it's beneficial for us as well, right? Because it is some of this stuff we are seeing for the first time. We've never drawn any of this way. We've never seen it visualized this way, and perhaps there's something of this that we can, extract and clean up and use in our book. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Um, Azazel says, "Well, you know what they say about pronouncing the furniture names." I don't know what they say about pronouncing the furniture names. I'm sure you can pronounce those names better than any of us in North America can. The Flumflieg and the Flickflock and the Krumpst and the and all that nonsense. As we sit here in our Poang armchair, we're not making that up. We're absolutely sitting in a Poang armchair from IKEA. Stuart says, yes, I think it worked with the board. Who knows for the future? And Benjamin says, it's great to facilitate expressing your ideas visually. Okay. Even with the messiness, because we look at this going, my God, these people think that, well, we never graduated grade school. Look at this. Look at this. Where did we learn how to write letters? Stuart says that's a great armchair. It's a good armchair. It's I don't know if it's a great armchair, but it's a good armchair. We had to cover the press board arms with some foam padding though, because that's what's not good about the Poang armchairs. That these armrests are not very restful on the arms. They're very irritating. Azazel says, well, they say you may summon demons uttering those weird furniture. And he follows that up and saying, and considering the calls that we get, I do not reject that rumor. My God. Oh my God. I just had a realization, a revelation. That makes perfect sense now. It makes absolute perfect sense. It must be the Black Lodge. It must be an entire cult of black magicians behind the entire IKEA enterprise, and the whole thing exists. Just that's why all of their instruction manuals have no language in them except for the name, so that it becomes, so you have people all over the world summoning the same demons at the it's oh that makes perfect sense now. Oh yes. And that's why they chose their colors to be blue and yellow, right? because it's the most innocent, the most innocuous, the furthest away from red, right? So makes sense. Benjamin says you write better than some professors do. And Stuart says that board looks like the inside of my head. Then God help you, Stuart, and hope go and meditate. Go and sit in quiet and meditate. If that's what your head, believe me, that's if that's all your head looks like, you're doing very, very, very well. One day we will show you what the inside of our head looks like, and then you can and then we can compare notes. So if this is the inside of your head, you're doing well. You're doing very, very, very well. And for all of you gentlemen who have dated women, you know what the inside of their head can look like. And we don't have a well. Actually, we would have to zoom this out a bit. And let's see, it would go something like where is it? Oh, wait. Here, let's see if we can pull this off. Do we do this? Okay. Let's see if we can pull this off. I don't know if this works. No. Oh, there it goes. Oh, it's really slow. It's a Microsoft product, so what do you expect? Okay, that's too slow. Anyway, you get the idea. You get the idea. I can't. Anyway, you get the idea. We're going to clear this board now anyway. We don't have to save it, not for our sake. What? You know what? There. That's better. Okay, where's our mouse? Stuart says, "Oh my day, oh my days," and then herd the masses through forced aisles with chocolate treats at the end. He says, "Okay, I need to go meditate." Thank you all. Thank you all. If there are any more comments or questions, you have a couple more minutes to type them out. Otherwise, we're going to also say goodbye and let you know that we have arranged for publishing of our book, for editing and publishing for our book. We're already, the publisher's already working on the cover. We've written the back cover, and we're literally finalizing the manuscript. Our goal is to have the manuscript submitted by the end of August, and for it to be available online sometime in perhaps middle of October or late October, just to let you know. And we have updated our website. Well, we've created a website, and we've updated it, and we should share that here. There. So we've updated this entire section on books. So this is the first section, right, on the Great Awakening. We have some testimonials which we've taken from some comments from blogs and so on. We also have our next book already announced on the website as well. You may recognize this because it's going to be based on our article about the many faces of fear. That's the way the title is going to appear in the book. F Fear with the asterisks. And we have the description down here. This still has to be redesigned, but you see the many faces of fear you see on the back wall there, and Um, this description has to change, and we have to change the design and layout of this one to match this one here. But then we also have uh, a book in formation, right? This is going to be our magnum opus. Um, this is going to be our what some people will call a theory of everything, but of course, it's not a theory; it's the fact. It's how everything unfolds, and how everything unfolds into being and not being, and what you experience today in this live stream on perfection and how the universe perfects itself and how it uses perfection as a trap, how it creates perfect illusion, and how it allows us to develop into the perfection of the being. Um, so this is a book in formation. It's not We're not promising a date or a time or anything else. It's just it's in the works. And so and finally, we have our first book, which is available now on Amazon, and that's just the Atlas Project Part One. Um, the other sections we have here on like Om and life and work. Some of this stuff is still under construction; it still has to be updated. But this is atlasalex.com. This logo is only temporary as well. We're not exactly happy with it so far, but we needed to get a lot of the stuff into a form that we could, we didn't want to leave it to the last minute, in other words, right? Um, so if you're interested in taking a look yourself. Now, one of the things about um, is that we created a shop, and we only have one product on here. We just have, a mug, right, with a logo. You can actually order that mug. It's a real product. It will actually get shipped to you, and the whole works. But the reason why we did this is because we are trying to figure out how we can take pre-orders on the book, and also we want to be able to offer a limited number of signed copies of the book. And this is where people will be able to come if they want a signed copy of the book. We might do some other little swag, we might do some T-shirts or something that have like, some of our memes or some of our, Alm of Life stuff. Or anyway, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that unfolds. Um, all proceeds are going to be going towards the Atlas project anyway. This is not even though this is our, personal author blog or author website. The reality is we live in the real world, and we need resources to be able to accomplish our mission. So, but I just felt we should share this with you because you guys are here on a regular basis, and just so you know that we are making progress and we're getting closer to who and where and how we need to be in order to accomplish what we came here to do. And that all of you have been here on the ground floor and present and witnesses to Atlas in formation, right? You guys have been witnesses. And uh, the book is going to tell more of our story and reveal more of the truth and the knowledge which we gathered through our journey through hell, going through the Alm of Life. So we walk our talk and we pay it forward, and now we're bringing it to the world, and all of you are a part of that. In however small way, your presence is much appreciated, it's greatly valued, You give us an opportunity to practice and hone our message, and now even uh, start getting accustomed to making spaghetti boards with a digital pen and a little, $30 tablet from Amazon. Um, but this is all part of that process. This is all part of Atlas in formation, and we just want to extend our gratitude and our heartfelt, um, earnest appreciation for you being here and being a part of it, because you give us real purpose and real meaning each and every week to spend these hours with you, pouring our heart out for your sake and for the sake of suffering humanity. And the more we do it, the better we get at it. The bandwidth gets better, our clarity gets better, our ability to express, and new analogies come to us, and new ways of expressing things, and it's practice makes perfect. And I'm never going to be perfect. Perhaps we're never going to be perfect, not in this lifetime, not in this world, but practice makes perfect. Practice, we have to do the work, we have to practice being, and being perfectly imperfect in the moment. That's our practice, is to be. And that's how practice makes perfect, because you can't practice if you're not present. You can't practice if you don't show up for practice. It takes us all the way back to the beginning when Azazel said, being, not being. Okay. Anyone have any other comments or questions? If not, then we wish you all a wonderful week, a productive week. Don't forget to be, don't forget to remember your being. And until next week, we wish you all inferential peace, and have a good one. Thank you all again for being here today. Take care.